Okay, we're here with Walter and Emil of Revolution, and yeah, we'll have them introduce themselves, and then we'll get started.
Okay, I'm Walt Stoschel. I'm with the I'm chair of the Edison Open Space Advisory Committee. I'm vice president of the Edison Greenways Group. I'm spearhead of the Middlesex Greenway Coalition, and involved in a lot of things since the 1980s. And on to Emil.
Hi, everybody. Emil DeVito, PhD ecologist. I've been with New Jersey Conservation for 36 years. Lifelong Middlesex County resident, South Plainfield, and formerly on the Middlesex County Open Space Committee in the 1990s. And a couple of people said, they weren't as credentialed as the rest of us. That doesn't mean a darn thing. The whole point is to show. Somebody said they were darn mad about what's being proposed at Thomas Edison Park. Somehow we have to get through to the National Park Service all the reasons why we think we're getting ripped off as county and state residents, and how this park is being proposed to be turned into a destination sports complex. It's not going to be a park. And so don't worry about if you're not credentialed. All you need to do is figure out a way to impress upon the National Park Service that this is wrong and that they should put some really severe constraints on what's going on over there. And we'll talk about all those topics tonight. And, somehow we got to hope that the National Park Service is less under the influence of the Middlesex County politicians than the more local folks. So let's see what we can. We got to just get everybody started on figuring out the best thing to say to the National Park Service, and everybody can say something a little bit different and hit all the topics, and hopefully that'll give them enough chutzpah to do something.
Thanks, Emil. All right.
Okay, okay. What's going on is this: we have 19 days to comment to the National Park Service on the proposal to build the destination sports complex in Edison Park. John, I sent you the links for the comment page, and I sent you the links for the environmental assessment, so people can comment. One of the things, when you make your comment, add a question to it, because of all the environmental assessments I've reviewed, they address the questions. So if you say,
good to know.
If you say there's no basketball there, that won't get addressed. But if you ask, why isn't there any basketball courts in this? It's a park, and I play basketball, and you don't include basketball. So ask a question in it. So let me get started with what's going on. John has the link for the.
Walter, you mean almost about every point we want to make, we want to try to develop a question around it.
That's right, because they have to address the question, and when in the final document they will say, let's say, there were 20 people who asked about basketball. There were 20 people who asked about the bald eagles in the area. So it won't be just your comments won't be just put aside as just comments. Put some questions in it so that they have to address the questions in the final document. So when you go to the link that John has, you're going to get this. It's the environmental assessment for Thomas Edison Park. Why do they have to do this? Why does the county have to do this? Well, the county is proposing to take what is now a park and turn it into a destination athletic complex with 14 plastic fields and a cricket ground, 1,300 parking spaces. Everything that you see in the park today gets demolished, and they cut down an additional 11 acres of woodlands. The land was sold to the county at a discount by the federal government when the Raritan Arsenal closed. And when it closed, when they sold the land, they put a deed restriction on it that any change in the program of utilization, which is what the county told the federal government they wanted to do, has to be approved by the National Park Service. It's in the deed and it's in the contract. So the county has to go through this process. The county proposed this in November 2022. They had a big press conference with the governor where they called it the CIO plan, where they're going to turn Edison Park and Middlesex County College into a destination. You're going to have the sports complex on Edison Park and a 5,000 seat stadium built on the county college property, and a 10,000 meal a day sports bar on the county college property, all connected by a walkway, so that you would be able to go from one to the other without going through the whole campus. They didn't contact the Park Service until May of 2023. So we don't think that they knew about the deed. The people who came up with the plan didn't know about the deed restriction. In 2023, when they contacted the Park Service made them do an environmental screening form, and they just tried to say this is just additional fields. There's nothing else here. It's just new fields. It's a recreational use. The original program of utilization called for fields. Nothing to be worried about. Well, the Park Service didn't like that answer, and they made them do the environmental assessment, which is this document. It's 50 some pages.
Wow.
And it's very interesting because the document does not say the word destination sports complex. It just says additional fields that are needed in the county. And it downplays the destination sports complex. But if you look at it, that's what it is. If you go Google destination sports complex, you'll see others of them around the country, and they look like this: a whole bunch of fields, big parking lots, so they can run tournaments. This park, if you look at it, isn't for you, the local resident who wants to go there and kick a soccer ball around. It's for teams that are coming from all over and paying to play on these fields. Now, the county says they will comply with the federal government regulations that all the money remains either in the park or in the Parks Department's accounts. They're going to charge, they say they're going to charge the rate they charge everybody else for the fields. But what they don't say is, if I'm the Walt Stoschel Soccer League from Philadelphia and I want to play a tournament there, I can charge my players $500 a weekend to play the tournament. And I'm going to take all that money, and I'll pay the county the going rate for the fields, which is not $500 a person. I looked up, there's a complex in Rockford, Illinois. They have, I don't know, 30 or 40 fields, and one soccer league uses it. And if you're a child that wants to play soccer for a season, it's $1,400. That money doesn't go to the city of Rockford's recreation department. It goes to the soccer league. So, as much as the environmental assessment says there'll be reasonable fees charged to those who rent the fields, it doesn't say that those who rent the fields can't charge whatever they want for people to use the fields. They say they need to do the artificial turf fields because of climate change, because it's harder to maintain the grass fields because they dry out, or there's now too much rain and they're going to get too muddy. And there's a term they use, I can't think of it off the head, playable hours, that right now it would be 380 playable hours, but with the turf fields, it'd be 4,000 playable hours. So that's the big, their big reason why they want the plastic fields. The 1,300 car parking lot is the biggest parking lot in Edison Township, and it has a roadway out, one roadway out and one more roadway in. So if the roadway gets blocked, nobody gets in and What the county didn't tell the Park Service, they have another plan to put a road through the park that they are getting funding from the Department of Transportation. So that's not in the environmental assessment. And they applied for and got $8 million from the Department of Community Affairs with the state for this project. And it says one of the things it will generate revenue for the county. So that's what the goal is, to generate revenue for somebody. So this is the only chance we have to stop it or change it. They have all the state permits. They got the Green Acres okay, which wasn't much. And the only thing is the Park Service. And if you read the environmental assessment, it does say they take in all the information and then make a decision, which could be they could reject it. There's two options that they are considering. One is a no action, the park remains the same. And number two is the proposal. The county said they couldn't find another site around in the county that they could do this on. But there's a site right next to this that the federal government owns that they could build 14 fields. Or they have one option that they didn't consider was not build 14 fields, but build less fields. You know, why 14? The document doesn't say why 14. We know why there's no 15th field, because it wouldn't fit. You couldn't fit a 15th field there. Okay. Emil, you want to add anything?
Yeah, am I muted? I'm good, right? So the whole idea that Walter used the phrase destination sports complex. Now, Walter, I think you said that you haven't found that phrase in the environmental assessment.
No, it's not in the environmental. It just says it's just adding fields that are needed for the future population growth of the county.
Right. So, but they have called it a destination sports complex in other documents. Isn't that correct?
Right. That's right.
So it would be good, I think, if we could have at least one, if you could email around a quote from a certain document, Walter, to John, and then he can email it to everybody else, of where they say that, at least in one place, right? One important place. Because then that's one of these questions that we can ask is, why do they call it a destination sports complex, you know, when they're talking about it in one venue, but they don't call it that when they're telling the National Park Service what they want to do? So that's a question. Why are they hiding the fact that they're trying to attract people? When you use the word destination, that means you're trying to attract people from miles and miles and miles away. How does that serve the population? How does that serve the population of Middlesex County? To have giant tournaments with teams coming far and wide. That doesn't serve. Ask how it serves and you just keep making questions, right? How does that serve the population in Middlesex County? To have a destination sports complex where you can't have a tournament that's going to cover 14 fields unless you're attracting people from all over the map, right? And obviously why they're doing this is because of its location, right next to the New Jersey Turnpike, pretty much. And people can come from far and wide. And, so, and then another set of questions has to be about what Walter was getting at. Middlesex County is going to charge some organization a fee, right? And it might be a reasonable fee to run a tournament. But then the people who run these tournaments make a fortune. It costs kids hundreds of dollars a weekend to be in a tournament. And, how is some other private group, whether they're a nonprofit group or a for-profit group from somewhere else, how are they serving the people of Middlesex County, right? When they're going to be taking in all this cash to run a tournament because that's what's run at destination sports complexes, and they make hundreds of thousands of dollars in a weekend. And how is Middlesex County going to recoup that money and put it into their park system? Other questions could be, who's going to track? Who's going to be responsible for tracking the money that's made at this place? Who's going to be responsible for verifying that it goes into the open space coffers of Middlesex County to buy additional parkland and to upgrade other parks and to do other park purposes within Middlesex County? Who's going to be responsible for tracking that and proving that all of this money is not being generated for some private purpose? Right? And because once, if the National Park Service just says, okay, then that's it. We'll never hear from them again. And who's going to track the money? Right? So I think we have to throw all these things out there. We have to really hit hard about this destination sports complex and all the dominoes that fall once people start coming from all over creation and filling that parking lot. Somebody is going to make tons of money, and it's not going to be Middlesex County. And there's going to be no way to follow the money.
Emil, let me add something here.
Yeah.
If all 14 fields are filled with a tournament and you want to use that part of the park, you won't be able to use it. If that 1,300 car parking lot is full and you want to use the walking path in the park, you can't use it because you can't park there. Some of these complexes even prohibit you from bringing in outside food and drink. You have to buy your food and drink at the complex. So that I imagine that could happen here. And like I've been saying to people, they're taking what is now a free park and turning it into a fee park. That's gonna drive the park. If they can rent 14 fields on a weekend to a tournament, they'll do it. They won't leave one of the fields open for you.
Oh, so another comment has to be, when does the public use the park most, right? They use the park when they're not working. They use the park in the evenings and on the weekends. And when do these tournaments occur? Usually these tournaments take 4 days or at least 3 days. And when do they occur? Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So the fact that they're going to have 14 soccer fields with the potential to have tournaments running continuously with games one after the other from 10 o'clock in the morning until midnight at the time when the public would want to use the park. So it's another, that's a why question. Why are you going to take the park and allow it to be used as a destination sport complex at the very times of the day and the days of the week and the months of the year when people need the park most to be able to enjoy it? Right? We just have to keep hitting them. These are what are called public trust issues, right? The public has that park. The National Park Service gave that park to Middlesex County. I believe it was at a 50% bargain sale, right, Walter?
Right.
So Middlesex County bought that park for 50% of the true value, so that the public and the National Park Service, the federal government gave Middlesex County that discount when they turned over the land, so that the public could enjoy it. And now the local people who are supposed to be enjoying it, it's basically being taken away from them. We have to hit that point and hit that point hard in as many different ways as we can think of. So I'm throwing ideas out there, and you just need to put them into your own way of saying it. And again, like Walter said, that was really important what Walter said about asking questions. So they can't you don't just want to say, I don't like something, right? You have to ask a question that they have to follow up with real answers.
Emil, I want to also say, the Park Service has not approved a destination athletic complex on a federal Lands to Parks program site. So if they approve this here, what's to stop every community that has got one of these sites from saying, well, we're just going to start redevelop it, charge people for the tennis tournaments. We're going to charge people for the swimming. We're going to put in swimming pool, and other things, and charge money for those things. And the the public is going to be pushed out of these parks all over the country. So it would set a precedent. So, if you live in Middlesex County and comment, that's good. But if you got cousins in Wyoming or Mississippi or somewhere, have them comment too. Tell them about it. Just a few words that you don't want this to happen all over the country. I think that'll help. Also, if you're a member of any organization, you're a member of any organization, if you're a member of the Sierra Club, put that in your comments. If you're a member of the Conservation Foundation or any other group, put those in your comments. If you're an engineer or the architect, put that in your comments. I think the Park Service is looking for organizations that they know that are commenting, so that they can say, look, the Sierra Club doesn't like this, and other groups don't like this. So that you can include also.
So let me ask a question, Walter and others. So, what we do have in New Jersey with the Green Acres program are Green Acres diversion rules. If you're going to take a park and use it for something else, right? A school, a highway, some other compelling public need, right? You can get permission from the Green Acres program. And these rules are pretty good, actually, where you have to replace what you're taking with equivalent acreage, equivalent recreational, passive or active recreational opportunities, and on land that's of equivalent value. Those rules are decent. People still find ways to get around them, unfortunately, but they're actually decent regulations, and they do stop most of the cockamamie Green Acres diversions of parkland. As I said before, since this is recreation, that one part of the rule is weak. And since our Green Acres program won't call this a diversion, they'll only call it a change of use, which doesn't have there are no regulations about that. What we could do to the National Park Service is insist that this is tantamount to a diversion, right? A diversion of parkland. They're still calling it Thomas Edison Park, or we're refurbishing Thomas Edison Park, we're upgrading Thomas Edison Park. But really what they're doing is and I think this point needs to be stressed, is that they're taking away the park, they're taking away the public's trust, and they're creating something that's going to be, targeted and marketed to a very different set of people with means. And that really gets us into an environmental justice issue, right? Because who's going to be able to play on these 14 soccer fields, and who's going to be able to enter tournaments? People with the means to do it, right? If you're some kid who lives over on that side of Edison and you just want to go kick a ball around on a Saturday afternoon, you're not going to be able to do it because you're not on some team that costs thousands of dollars to be on, right? So we should hit that issue. It's a diversion of the public trust. Use those words, because maybe the National Park Service will consider it that, even though our crummy Green Acres program rules don't allow our Green Acres program staff to consider it a diversion. Maybe the National Park Service will consider it in that light, in that, that severity, that you're taking away the public's trust. A kid who can't afford to join a team, I think we should make an environmental justice issue out of it, right? A kid who can't afford a team and, be held to some schedule and pay all sorts of money for all these fancy coaches and that type of stuff. They're not going to be able to use this place much of the time, because you don't build this kind of thing to have it be just sitting there waiting for some local kids to play on it, right? You're not going to do that. You're not going to build 14 fields where there's not a tree. It's going to be light poles and, just one giant contiguous stretch of professional fields. That's not being built for local kids from Edison and the other towns in northeastern Middlesex County to come and play. So we really should make an environmental justice issue out of it at the same time.
Okay, Emil, I got one last thing, and then I think John will give us some questions from the group. The county in the document says that while they have the two options, the no build and this one, there's a third one they're considering. It's called the abrogation of the deed restriction, where they would pay the federal government fair market value for the park, and then they could remove the deed restriction and do whatever they want. So the park's 161 acres, and land is going in Edison for $500,000 an acre. So that's a lot of money they would have to spend to get rid of the deed restriction. So
they would have to pay back the half of that.
No, they have to pay fair market value today, what it is.
Yeah, but since they paid half the fair market value way back when. I don't know. I'm not a lawyer. They might only have to pay half the fair market value of the acreage that they want, of the whole place.
And
right?
the other thing,
I don't. That's a legal question. Who knows what the answer to that is?
And we're going to talk about this at the August 29th Middlesex Greenway meeting at the Clara Barton First Aid Squad. I'm going to do another PowerPoint on the environmental assessment, and then people will have 4 days to respond.
And here's the thing, I worry about that abrogation. Is that the right word, Walter?
Nope.
I worry about that because this place has the potential to make so much money that might be a drop in the bucket.
Well,
in which case we still lose the park. So,
right. But the park still remains a recreational facility. They can't be built. They can't put houses on.
Yes. So
the Green Acres regulation stay.
That's right. That's right. It's, I mean, they get permission to build this thing. I don't know if there's an easy way to ask the National Park Service for this, but I'm just wondering if the National Park Service is going to come down on the side of allowing it to happen. Another thing that the National Park might say is replace the land with a regular park somewhere else nearby. That's what would happen if it was a Green Acres diversion. If our state Green Acres program would consider this a diversion because it's going to really become a private venture, they would have to replace the land elsewhere, and at least we'd end up with a park somewhere. I don't know if the National Park Service can ask for that or not. So that I'm still wrestling with how to make sure that we still end up with a park.
Yeah, when I talked to the Park Service last year, they said the process would be the Park Service would transfer the property to the General Services Administration, and the GSA, which is the government's landlord, would hold would sell the land to the county.
Right.
At value.
Right. Well,
okay, let's get John to give us.
So that's going to be, it's going to be difficult to end up. It's going to be really difficult to end up with a park if Middlesex County can just throw money at this thing and abrogate the deed.
Right, but there's one thing in one of the documents I got. It said that there's a deadline for the funding of this. The county had a deadline, and we're not sure. Remember, Emil, where the money's coming from. We hear talk that there's a federal grant that they got,
right?
And I've asked for any federal grant from the county, and they haven't produced it. So we have no idea. But that's a question they ask in a comment.
So it might be that the money has to be awarded by the end of the year, because it might be from like the COVID money or the rescue money or the infrastructure money or something, and it might be that there's a deadline that they're worried about.
Right, so if they go to abrogation, that'll probably take 1.5 to 2 years, so.
Well, so that would really, that could really be a problem then. Okay, so there's a few other smaller topics. But I think those are the most important ones that we've already talked about. Well, we haven't talked about artificial turf. Maybe we should do that because I'm not an expert on artificial turf.
Okay, let's can we do a couple of questions?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, Stephanie, Susan, and then Esther.
Hey, I'm Stephanie. I'm actually an executive director of a parks partnership group, so I work with NPS pretty closely. I did come on late, so if this is redundant, I apologize. But if the park was sold to NPS, how are we looking for NPS to support us in the protection of the park if there's already a sale made?
Well, that won't, we don't know if that's gonna happen. That's if the Park Service rejects this plan under the environmental assessment process, under the NEPA process, the county says in the environmental assessment, they're considering abrogating the deed. And I don't think the Park Service would care at that point.
Remember, the Park Service doesn't own this property. They only hold a restriction. Right, Middlesex County is the owner of the land. The Park Service has a restriction on it because of the program of how the federal government transferred the land to Middlesex County 60 years ago. Is it 60 or 60 years ago? Right.
Yeah.
Right. No, I hear you. Is there legislation of the incorporation of the park if it was at all? If it's just a restriction?
Yeah,
it's just a National Park Service restriction. The state has no restriction. There's no Green Acres. Well, I mean, they've gotten Green Acres money over the years, so there's the Green Acres covenant. But as I said, we can't count on Green Acres for anything because they consider it a change of use, and they don't have any rules about that. You can change the use to anything you want.
If you go to the National Park Service website about this project for the environmental assessment, there's a list of there's an appendix with a list of documents. All the deeds and the contract are in that, and it's pretty clear that what restriction that the Park Service has. If the Park Service didn't have this restriction, that park would have been demolished by now, and they would be building these fields. Because they closed the park in December 2022, and they put up a sign, park closed, reopening in 2024.
Right,
because they didn't know. The last time they reported to the National Park Service, Walter, wasn't it like the early 1990s?
No, 2008.
2008?
Yeah.
So somebody knew, at one point, somebody knew that they had to tell the National Park Service what the program of utilization was, but then they haven't done it for over a decade.
Right, and they didn't contact the Park Service until May of 2023. So this was after they finalized their CIO plan and announced this big change we're going to do. We're going to make it a destination. We're going to build a stadium on the county college property. This is all a wonderful thing, and they didn't know about this.
All right, Susan. And you're muted if you're speaking.
My question is, if they're going to put 14 fields there with the stadium and everything, how is your traffic flow? That was one of our arguments, and our fight to get the citizens behind us, because they were going to build the 6 acres, and our mayor wanted to do it at destination too. That was her original plan. And she was going to rent out the fields to all kinds of traveling soccer and lacrosse people and everything. And then, of course, the plan kept changing as we kept bringing up points that it was at a T intersection, that the football stadium across the street had no parking of its own. So they used the intermediate school parking. How are they going to run simultaneously something at the high school stadium and then 6 acres, like 4 fields of football and marching band and all this stuff. So her plans kept changing as we kept bringing in issues. And we finally got down to, well, they're just going to use it for practice. And I said, well, how's everybody going to be able to get there? It's a T intersection. It's already very crowded. She said, well, we'll skirt the practices. I said, well, if you're going to skirt the practices, what do we need 6 acres of this stuff for? You know, well, you could do half the fields, you know, and keep them grass. Anyway, those were the arguments, and that's how we got the residents, the voters, to sign the petition to force the referendum. And one of them was also the traffic. I mean, we brought up to them that you'll have to drop your kid off at 6 to practice from 6 to 7, but you can't go home to the other side of town. You'll never get there and back by 7. But you can't stay in the parking lot because there's not enough room for everybody to come in and out. So you're going to have to drive around the south side of town till you get close to 7 and then get your kid and go home. And you'll be in your car for hours and hours. And when people really started to think this whole thing out, in the beginning, everybody thought it was wonderful too. And the mayor said, oh, the town's going to make all this money and we're going to have these traveling teams. And then when we went to everybody, all the same things you're talking about now, where's the kids going to play? And are the school teams going to get to the fields if you're renting all this out? So my question to bring up,
there is a traffic study in the appendix of the report. I didn't read it yet because it's a lot of numbers, and usually they say the traffic is bad and it's just going to stay bad. But one of our residents did look at it and said they anticipate on a weekend day 4,000 people using the facility, and it would close at 10 p.m. So on the weekend, the roads down there aren't as busy because it's an industrial area. It's busy during the week with truck traffic. There's some truck traffic on Saturdays and Sundays, but not a lot. But you know, the neighbors, the residents in that area on the weekend, it's quieter. And now you're going to add all this traffic.
right?
So
that's
the
the question.
problem,
Like I said,
the problem is, aren't they proposing a new road, Walter?
Yeah, they're proposing a new road, but they don't talk about it in the environmental assessment.
Oh, well, so that's a glaring. Then that's a so that's a good thing to bring up, right?
Right.
There's going to be 4,000 people there on a weekend. Why aren't they talking about what are the anticipated traffic problems and what is the National Park Service, you know, thinking regarding the fact that they have to build a new road that's close to tidal wetlands, right? The road that they want to put in is on the east end, right, where it becomes tidal wetlands.
It goes down one of the old magazine roads where the maintenance buildings are. They need to build a culvert. That's basically the only permit they would need. But you know, it's in the report. You know, John sent you the link if you want to read the traffic study.
Yeah, the problem is that they're not looking for any local approval. You know, normally when somebody wants to develop something, they have to get a local approval, and you can go to the planning board and you could say, where's the traffic study? And is the planning board going to approve the traffic study? Edison doesn't get to say anything about this. Because
we don't get to say, you're right, Emil. Edison doesn't get to say anything. And in the section about the cutting down of the 11 acres of trees in the environmental assessment, it says Edison has a tree ordinance that will require replacement of the cut down trees, but since this is a county project, we're exempt from the local ordinances.
Right. So in other words, they're exempt from everything local, all local approvals. So they get a permit for their culvert from the DEP, which you can get. You can get a permit to do anything, right? So they get a permit for their culvert, and then they ignore the fact that there could be traffic problems. There could be problems with, you know, this is right exposed to Raritan Bay. You know, if there's another superstorm, giant hurricane or whatever, you know, what's at risk here? You know, the access road that they want to build is right on the edge of the salt marsh. So we should be saying things about that and questioning the fact that, you know, since they're then maybe you're the fellow who's on the phone who's an engineer. This, they're exempt from any kind of local approval or local scrutiny. Is the National Park Service considering the traffic problem? Is the National Park Service considering resiliency problems with sea level rise and storms and storm surges, and how that might impact the access road? And safety concerns. What are the safety concerns? Just keep asking questions.
Right.
That's what
Emil,
we need to do.
the parking lot's the largest one in Edison. It's bigger than the Menlo Park Mall, and there's like 6 or 7 entrances to the mall. This has only one entrance and exit. This would never.
Are you serious, Walter? This is bigger. This parking lot is bigger than the Menlo Park Mall.
Yes. Yes. If this had to come before the Edison Planning Board as is, it would never get approved. If this was a private piece of land, Edison would never approve it with one way in and one way out. Never approve that. Also, our noise ordinances and all those things don't apply. So if it's
right.
If it's
And
noisy,
see, the federal government doesn't realize this, but in many states, counties are sort of a much stronger authority on things. In many states that are more rural, counties are the place you go to get things approved and verified and make sure they meet various specifications. In New Jersey, it's the municipality, because we have 564 municipalities, and every one of them is their own little fiefdom. But in this particular case, Edison gets to say nothing, and the county, the county planning department, they don't have any approval authority, denial authority, nothing. The county has nothing, and the state washes its hands of the whole deal.
Right,
the Green Acres program.
The county planning board hasn't approved this. The county open space committee hasn't approved it because I did an Oprah request for their minutes and they don't have any minutes. So they haven't been meeting and they haven't approved this.
But they probably don't have to.
Well, if the county thought that this is such a wonderful thing for the county, you would think they would line up all their agencies and their boards and stuff to approve this, have numerous public meetings to decide what should go on the property, but they've only done the Green Acres diversion hearing because
the
they
change
had
of use hearing. Don't forget change of use hearing,
because they had to.
Right.
Other environmental assessments across the country, the towns have done public hearings. The county hasn't done this because they don't want the public to know about this.
Isn't
So
that a
those are a whole
compelling?
series of questions. Why has the county planning board not approved this? Why has why have there been no public hearings with lots of outreach? I mean, the county's going to say they've had a public hearing at some Middlesex County commissioners meeting or something.
They do say that as part of the open space plan that was adopted in 2022, they did surveys of people in the parks, and they said we need more fields, but they don't say that they need a destination sports club.
Right. Again, so that's
So if you asked me, if I was using a park and you asked me what do we need in the park, and I would say more fields, I meant in my community. I don't mean in Monroe or Spotswood,
or build a destination athletic complex so everybody else in the world can come and play in Middlesex County, but we still can't use it.
We also did an inventory of the plastic fields in the county, and there's over 90 plastic fields already. You count public schools, private schools, the county, the municipalities. There's 90 already. I don't see how you can't play a tournament on 90 existing fields. We got artificial intelligence now. The artificial intelligence could come up with a schedule for these teams to play on these fields all over the county. I don't see why we can't do that.
Right. And they do that, and they do that. Like, I've been to these baseball tournaments because my buddy's got a kid on one of these traveling baseball teams. And they'll be at 4 or 5 different fields in Edison, behind Wardlaw, and you know, at another field down the road. I can't remember the name of all the fields, but they'll have a baseball tournament and they'll be in 3 or 4 different places. The same thing, they'll go to Newark or Staten Island, there'll be a number of different fields. And they've managed to do it just fine. But what they're saying is they want to build this complex, this destination complex, so that you can go and fill this parking lot that's as big as the Menlo Park Mall and have it all in one place. And that
Right.
clearly is not something for the people of Middlesex County.
And it also says in there, they're planning to hire a third party to manage the facility. So, because they don't have the capacity, the county's park reservation system, to add, manage reservations for 14 more fields in the county. So they're clear in that in the environmental assessment, saying that we're gonna hire a third party for managing.
Let's ask the question: is the County Improvement Authority going to hire, or is the third party going to be hired through the County Improvement Authority so it doesn't have to go out to bid?
Right.
Let's ask that question, because I'm sure that's what they probably already know who they're going to hire. It's some person who's already hooked in, who's going to make $1 zillion. It's not going to have to go out to bid, and they're going to hire somebody to run this thing, and it's going to be a cash cow for some favored son or daughter of the Middlesex County commissioners. And that's what's going to happen. So what we have to ask is, who's going to do the hiring? Is it going to be a public process? Is it going to go out to bid? Are we going to ensure that the people of Middlesex County are going to get the money that all of these teams pay, and not some third party who's making a fortune, on sitting on the public land? So we have to ask all those questions.
Okay, John, anybody else have any questions?
I think there was one
me.
more.
Esther has a question. I see her hand up.
Yeah, well, I was going to ask if we have any information on the flood susceptibility in that area, because it's near the river and we're going to be putting a lot of impermeable surfaces between the construction on the college campus and the parking lots and the turf fields, which they usually capture the water underneath in the rubberized undersurface, but that's going to go to the sewer. And as you pointed out, with the change in the climate, how that's going to impact the neighborhood. We have a community of condominiums right adjacent to this, and we're going to probably have buses coming down with pollution from their exhaust. And the fact that we have the impact on the Edison community environmentally, but no way of having the township weigh in. So there's no hearing before the planning board or the zoning board or any of the local bodies that might weigh in. The county is not interested in that. So it's really up to the this federal body and the environmental impact statement to say, we can create quite a mess here without the local body being able to have any say. But I was just also wondering, do we know how, you mentioned, Walter, there were so many acres of trees going to be cut down, right? Do we know how much they're going to replace on the grounds?
They don't have to replace anything.
They're going to cut down 11 acres of the woodlands. They're cutting down all the trees in the park, which is a different count. From looking at the plan, I think they're planting over 300 trees, landscaping trees, and they're going to do an area on the north side of where the trees were as a meadow, that's gonna reforest itself, it says. Your question about it
Well,
being
it's
near
not gonna,
the
so
water,
that we should object to anything reforesting itself because the deer aren't gonna let that happen, number one. It'll just become a tangle of weeds. Because nothing reforests itself except with weeds in Middlesex County.
Okay, Walter, could you
so-
finish what you were saying?
Yeah, wait, let me just say one thing,
The-
Walter, talk about the permits and whether or not they have flood hazard permits in part of your answer. Go ahead.
I don't know, I'd have to look in the environmental assessment, but they have all the permits that they need from the DEP, according to that. The,
DEP, okay.
right, the lower field, the lowest field on the here, right here, it is 10 feet above sea level, right there. And when you can look on the environmental assessment, they have a set of the plans. So that's 10 feet above sea level. If sea level rises 10 feet, the field will be on the shoreline. And then there's the plastic fields will have this crumb rubber. Now you think it's rubber, you think it's from the rubber tree plant, No, it's made from oil. And this stuff gets thrown out of the fields, the kids run around, it gets kicked out, it's going to be in the storm sewers, it's going to be in the detention pond, and eventually it's going to be in the river. And eventually the fish are going to eat it. So I couldn't find the statistic, but I heard that your average field loses 50 pounds. I don't know. There was a number of how many pounds of this stuff disappears every year on your field because you have to get new infill mix and spread it out because it bunches up on the field as the kids play on it. So the stuff disappears. It goes home with the kids. And then there's
And
that
it gets
health.
hot, it gets hot too.
Oh yeah, it gets hot. Yes, the people who've been opposing artificial turf all over the state were out there on the hot days in July, measuring the turf 140 degrees, 130 degrees. You can look that up online. Kids who have fallen on the turf and gotten burns, thermal burns from the heat of that. So when they make their arguments that the grass fields get too wet and we can't play on them, they don't make the argument that the fields are going to get too hot and we can't play on them.
And they also talk about the environmental impacts of the fields on the surrounding, tidal marsh and estuary.
They say
all of that stuff that's where it's going to end. What about when there's a storm surge in 30 years when sea level is a couple of feet higher and there's a storm surge and all that stuff ends up in Raritan Bay?
That's right. That's what's going to happen.
There's a new inland flood rule that's out a little less than a year ago, and that's a 3-foot rise in there. And I bet you they didn't consider that.
No, because they already have their permits. They even told us at a meeting we had that they've done everything under the old rules. They see this hasn't been in the works for so long, and Governor Murphy waited forever for the new flood hazards rules, so all these developers could get all their stuff in before the new flood rule was enacted on all these big projects. So they're in under all the old rules. None of the new rules apply.
Okay.
That was what I was referencing a few minutes ago, is that they don't have to consider climate change. They don't have to, and we should be telling that to the National Park Service, that they got all this in under the old rules. New Jersey has new rules. None of the rules apply. And here they are only a few feet above sea level, and they can ignore all of our new rules because the new rules didn't come in time. So they can't claim that it's sustainable, that it's resilient. They can't make any of those claims.
Yeah.
Oh, they
So
do
we
make
have to say,
they do make those claims that it's resilient. It's all those good things. But you look at the plans, there are no electric vehicle charging stations. There's, I think, five bike racks. It's a totally auto-dependent facility. there's 5 bike racks
Sure.
throughout the thing. So, and there's no way to really bike to it anyway, because of the highways around it. So, it's not. I look at it, if you wanted to design something that used the most oil and was the most damaging to the environment, this is it. It's what is it? 32% plastic fields, 39% impervious surfaces, and it's plastic fields, asphalt parking, even plastic fences. It's like the oil industry said, this is a gold star oil based development.
We have a couple of questions in the chat, and then we'll get to Stephanie if it's a different question. What are the long-range impacts to the county and residents? Cost impacts. What are the long-range cost impacts to the county and residents?
We know the fields, the bids went out in December. It was $66 million. They were rejected. We don't know the financing, how they're going to finance it. They say they have enough money. We know there's some sort of grant out there floating around. But what they don't say is in 10 years, we have to replace the fields. And it's about $1 million a field to replace. And
so that's a huge question, is how are they going to afford the maintenance of these fields? Since their replacement is inevitable, rapid replacement is inevitable. How are they going to pay for the replacement of these fields? Is all the money that they make going to go into a trust fund to just do maintenance in 10 years? Or are they going to have to come back to the people of Middlesex County to use more open space money to refurbish these fields every 10 years? That would be a really good question.
Right. And the fields cannot be recycled. The plastic cannot be recycled. It would have to go into a landfill. There's no process to recycle these fields.
Okay. Another question. You might have answered this already. What are the long-range environmental impacts? If you feel good with that.
Well, they're taking down 11 acres of woodlands.
Yeah.
They're taking out all the grass, other trees. They're putting 1,300 car parking lot with 4,000 vehicles a weekend coming in. The air pollution, the noise.
Have they so the question is, have they quantified these environmental impacts over the long term?
I don't think it says anything about the real long-term impact. Or if it is, if they say anything that basically the county says it doesn't have any impact on anything.
Well, I think the environmental report is interesting because it talks about the soils being farmland of unique importance, and it's defined as such based on the report. So I don't know if that's like, if we're just paving over that with concrete or putting plastic turf over that, when that's usable soil for a more worthwhile project than this.
Well, it also does say any excess topsoil will be distributed to the other county parks.
Oh, interesting.
What does that mean? What are they going to do? Create a solid waste disposal facility? We don't even know if it's clean.
Well, if you look at the report, there are areas of soil contamination that they have to remove. And they're going to cap some of the areas with the turf fields and the concrete and pavement. But it does say in there that any excess soil will be topsoil will go to the county parks, and excess soils will go to a licensed disposal area. So the county does have the county landfill in East Brunswick, and I would anticipate they would use that for cover fill. Look, they're taking all the topsoil on the site that's there now, where the park is going to be covered with plastic, asphalt, and concrete. So there's going to be extra topsoil. And they're also changing the grades of the park. So they're raising up the lower fields. So they'll use some of the subsoil they'll move everything around. They're going to move all the soils around. This is a massive construction project. This isn't just throw the carpet down and we're done. It's a massive construction project. They're going to replace all the existing utilities. They get ripped up. All this existing storm sewer system gets ripped up. Sanitary sewer lines get ripped up. It's all new.
For the
Are there any-
turf fields, they have to put in, they're gonna have the storm drainage system. What they do is they put in piping underneath and it goes into storage tanks. So the turf companies like you to believe that you could catch stormwater better with turf than you can with natural grass, because they catch it with the piping and they put it in the storage tanks. But eventually those storage tanks have to be emptied. So they end up in your groundwater and they end up in your waterways, but they don't disclose that. So what we've done, many of us we've been trying to research what in any of the areas like Montclair and Verona and Ridgewood and everything, when they present how they're going to catch the stormwater, we're looking at their systems to see exactly how it's going to be, because eventually it doesn't just run off that turf. It has to go somewhere. So they don't tell you how they collect it. And then it ends up eventually they release it into the groundwater.
Well, this place, they can't release much into the groundwater here because it's so close. I mean, it's not very high above sea level.
Yeah, Emil, the soil there kind of sandy in that part of town. It's the old, and it's the remnants of old clay pits and sand pits. So some of the soil water is gonna go into the sand and into the groundwater, which the groundwater is contaminated anyway. And the stormwater system from all the fields, the parking lot, and everything there is a pond they're building, water quality pond that is all flows into. So
they're meeting the old New Jersey regulations.
That's exactly right. They're meeting all state regulations. So
so here's an interesting thing that I just thought of. So, the federal government, there may have been executive orders by the Biden administration, by the EPA, regarding, climate change or water quality or protecting estuaries. Who knows? I don't know. Somebody must know. Maybe the Baykeeper might know if there have been any federal executive orders. Maybe we can call Greg Rameau from New York, New Jersey Baykeeper. Maybe there have been some executive orders in the last few years that this project does not meet, or that this project is contradictory to. And if we can come up with an executive order that they're not meeting and point that out to the National Park Service, that they're not meeting a certain executive order, you would think that the National Park Service would know that, but you never know, right? So it's their job to know that, but that doesn't mean they know it.
Tell me how this complies with the Biden administration's climate change policies and the effort to get the country off of the dependence on oil. This doesn't. It doesn't.
Right. Well, we can ask those questions in a general way, like you just did. Does this project comply with all recent federal administration policies regarding climate change, protecting estuaries? We can ask that question in a general way. But if we can, from Baykeeper or Littoral Society, maybe there are some executive orders or something definite that we can point to and say, it appears that this project does not meet this, policy that the National Park Service is supposed to be following. That would be really good. So I'll try to call, let's see, what's today? Is today Thursday night already? Rats. I'll try to call Tim Dillingham and Greg Rameau to see if they have, and in fact, try to get them to comment on this too.
Yeah.
But maybe they even know something that we don't know, because they deal with estuaries and bays and, all that stuff. Maybe there's some federal policy that the National Park Service has to have, put right in front of their face that, they're missing something. Because just because this is going through this parks, land to parks program review, it doesn't mean, because there's no endangered species issues here. So the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service has not had any review, right? I'll call the U.S.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Fish and Wildlife, there is a letter in the documents, and they went through whatever their process was.
Yeah,
and,
but it doesn't hit any species, so forget it. Doesn't matter.
Yellow crowned night heron is nesting south of the park.
Yeah, it's. My point is that there could be something that the right agency hasn't even been, realized that this. There could be something that there could be a federal agency directive or something that we're not aware of. I'll ask around.
And guys, where are we supposed to be asking our questions again? I know you said this earlier. Is there a link to something where we're supposed to be putting in our questions?
John has the link that he can send out, and there's a comment form on the National Park Service website for Edison Park, and you can fill that out and put it in there.
Okay, because I put like 12 questions in the chat, but that was really for them.
Right. It's the link I shared earlier, and you can comment here.
Oh, perfect. Thank you.
And comment period, you see. And
it says comment.
John, can you send out the questions that are in the chat to everybody?
Yeah, we put it in the Google Doc.
And you'll email that out, or I'm not tech friendly, so
Yeah, we'll email it.
Thank you.
Okay. One question. Oh, okay. One question is, how does our congressperson fit into this? Like, I think his office might have contacted the National Park Service. Is there any lobbying we can do through that?
You can contact Congressman Pallone's office and tell him you oppose this, because we did, and we found out that the county has been contacting him. So, this is the guy who wants to save the Jersey Shore and all those things, and it's this is such a bad project. I don't see why he would support it.
Okay. And then there's
the park.
Where's the new road going to be? This is the park. You can see it's temporarily closed.
Yes. Go
to the right, to the east.
Okay. Go up, John. See where the words New Jersey Convention Center is?
Mm-hmm.
Right. See that line? It's Newfield. See Newfield Road, Newfield Ave?
Yeah.
Draw that line through the park.
Okay.
Right. Just like that. Go like that through the park to the West Patrol Road, which is along that stream on the southwest. Yeah, just go straight. That line goes straight.
Yes, right there. You see it.
Yeah, see Newfield where you go yeah, see right. Yep. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it says Patrol Road. And see South 40 Brewing, that's where they're going to connect. They want to connect it, but they don't say it in the document. They say it in a application to the DOT.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
An appendix.
Yep. No, it's not in the appendix. It's in another document.
You mean it's not in something that was sent to the National Park Service?
It's not in this. It's not in the environmental assessment documents.
Huh.
So in my comments, it will go to them.
Well, I will, I'll find out from, Greg Ramo, Tim Dillingham, and the other organizations if there's any hook, any federal, hook having to do with protecting the bay and the estuaries and the coastal zone that is potentially not being paid attention to here because of climate change or getting us off, plastics or microplastics or anything like that. I mean, that's a big thing. These are all microplastics that they're going to be spreading tons of microplastics on these fields, and they're all going to end up in Raritan Bay. So everybody should comment about this, the issue of maintenance and the microplastics and the plastic recycling and the unsustainability of it all and the cost of replacing these fields and all that stuff. I mean, it's endless what we can comment on. The question is, does any of it have a regulatory tooth that the National Park Service can say, no, you're not going to do this project? And it may not. That's the problem.
Yeah.
Well, if nobody comments, then it happens.
Right. And if nobody asks all these questions, they don't even have to respond to the comments.
That's right. And for all, I haven't heard it from the from the county side. For all we know, every soccer league in the county could be sending in comments saying this is great. But since the county hasn't publicized this, I don't know if they're doing that. And
Well,
if you
plus,
remember,
if they just send a comment that says we like this and they don't ask a question, that's also in our favor.
Right.
We ask questions.
Remember at our meeting, Councilman Joe Coyle was there and Artie Cifelli was there, and they were saying that the Chamber of Commerce thinks this is a good thing because it's good for the business community. I just hope they send a letter saying this will be great for the economic development of the town, because that has nothing to do with the park. It actually would be, it would hurt them because it shows that the development of the park is for economic development and not for increased recreation for the community.
Right.
Yeah, good point. Someone before she left, Stephanie, said this might be enough to bring an inquiry to the EPA because they had some experience with that. So I think she.
I think the Park Service, that's one of the agencies they go through. They ask for comments. They got comments from the Army Corps of Engineers about the contamination, Fish and Wildlife for the animals. I don't think I saw anything from the EPA because the contamination there is from the Army, and the Army has the jurisdiction, the Army Corps of Engineers, not the EPA.
Okay.
So that's another person I can talk to is Gene Fox, the former director of the EPA.
Yes.
I'll ask her about this.
Ask her to write a letter.
Yeah, I can call. So I got to call Greg, Tim, Gene Fox. All right. I got a lot of phone calls.
Thanks. We gave you some.
If you know any of the Liberty State Park people.
I'm sorry, say that again, Walter.
Liberty State Park people.
You mean the folks who, you mean like the Friends of Liberty State Park that are opposing the commercial development of Liberty State Park? This is actually very similar, except that is a state park. And so they're fighting the state government, right? That's not a national park issue.
Mhm.
This is similar though, in that, that whole thing there is that the destination sports people want to build stadiums and, stuff that nobody can afford in Liberty State Park and doesn't help anybody, and they're already going to put 65 acres of the restoration of Liberty State Park is going to include 65 acres of ball fields so that the kids from Jersey City have stuff to do and the kids from all those inner cities. But that's not good enough. They want a gigantic stadium, indoor stadium, like an Olympic setup, like we just saw in France, because they're not the people who are touting that the kids in Jersey City need stuff. They don't care about the kids in Jersey City. They just want a whole pile of people to make money. It's all being driven by Paul Fireman, the chairman of Reebok, who's Governor Murphy's best friend, who wants also to be able to extend the Liberty Golf Course because it turns out it's too small for PGA tournaments. So it's Paul Fireman who's hired all these lobbyists and is paying off all these people in Jersey City to come and lobby for giant stadiums. And because he wants to expand his golf course and because he wants to own, all these private concessions that make all this money in Liberty State Park. But so far the DEP is holding their own. One instance, I got to credit Sean LaTourette, the DEP commissioner, for not caving into Governor Murphy's buddy. So, but we'll see. You never know until it's over.
Christiana, do you want to ask a question or I can, yeah, would you like to ask it?
I've got a comment if I can. To let you guys know about the flood rules, whether there's a federal executive order. If I recall, during the Obama administration, there was an executive order that required consideration for climate change. And of course, it got rescinded when Trump got in. But I'm quite sure it was put back in a new executive order when Biden got back in.
You think there's an easy way to look up? Usually those executive orders have numbers, like executive order number, blah, 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 and then we could look it up.
Right. I'm sure there is. I don't remember what it is, though. I could hunt back at our office and see what it is. I'll give it a try.
If you try that, that'd be great. And, let somebody know who can email me or you. I'm going to just give everybody my cell phone number. You can send me a text message if you find out something important, right?
Okay.
My cell phone number is 908-432-3419. 908-432-3419. If you find that executive order, boy, that'd be great. Then I can find out from somebody like Gene Fox what it means, and maybe it's a hook.
Well, just posted a executive order for flood risk management in the chat. So we
Okay.
executive order 1390.
Okay, reinstates executive order on flood risk management.
Yeah, that sounds familiar. I think that's
Process
it.
for further soliciting and considering stakeholder input. Federal investments located in or near floodplains will be resilient in the face of climate change. Yikes.
Oh,
So that's pretty good. So let's learn more about this. I'm gonna talk to Gene Fox. Oh, Columbia Law School. Okay. I know the people at Columbia Law School, and I'm gonna call one of those attorneys too. Okay, I'm leaving this right up on my computer. I can't get to it probably until Monday, but let's find out what this means. If we can come in with something from left field, boy, that'd blow the whole thing up. That would be like a miracle.
Walter, do you think it would be worth it to kind of do I know the park's closed, but do like a tour there, maybe at the college?
We can get in there. We just got to walk down the road.
Yeah, I know.
People told me they were walking through the park.
Okay.
So, go out there. Just go out there.
Just go.
Charlie's Cypress Brewing Company is right there.
Yeah, Charlie says he walks through the fence and walks through the park to the other brewery on the other side.
Okay. Well, I mean, Walter, do you want to lead a tour? I mean,
no, I'm not going to go on their property. I'm not. Okay. They tell me the park's closed, so
okay.
I'm not going to do that.
Oh, okay. Just want to walk in. Okay, thanks.
I will be at the Metuchen Green Fest on Sunday from, I think it's 10 to 3 on the plaza, and I will have information about the park and how to comment. So if you want to stop by. And then our Greenway meeting is August 29th, Thursday, August 29th, 7 o'clock at the Claire Barton First Aid Squad. We'll talk about this again.
What are they having at the Green Fest, Walter?
I'll be there, that they're having me, so.
Oh, I didn't
Claire-
read anything about it. That's why I was asking.
It's Sunday from 10 to 3 on the plaza in Metuchen, and they're gonna have electric cars, their environmental commission and the Greenway and other environmental groups.
Hmm.
And it's August 29th, 7 p.m.
At the Claire Barton First Aid Squad, at the address. 1079 Amboy Avenue.
All right, we'll try to get people to go.
And
Walter, say that again. I just want to put it on my calendar real quick, the next Claire Barton one.
August 29th.
29th, 7 at Claire Barton.
7 p.m. You can stop at Ferraro's and get your pizza before you get there.
Yeah.
Guys, is it too late to petition against this if we get resident signatures, or can we consult with the state, maybe the governor, on putting a pause on this project?
The governor was at the press conference where this was announced. And the only buddy at that press conference that owns a sports team is the governor. It's better if people just click on that link and comment rather than a petition. A petition is not going to
It's too
go
late
anywhere.
to have a petition in this year's election.
Yeah, it's more important for them it's easy to do. Click on it, fill out the form, write your comments. And I know the one that I looked at from Ohio had 230 some comments on that project. And most of those were for that project. So that was a flood control project that was going to impact the park. So it wasn't like this. So we get people to comment on that form. There's also a mail address on the form that you can mail it in via mail. I think that'll help more comments that they have to review will take more time, and it'll show the higher ups at the Park Service that the county is there's opposition to this in the county, that it's not just what the county is telling them. It's we're going to have other information coming in from the residents about this. And if you use the park, tell them you've been denied the use for 2 years.
Well, tell them that anyway. We've all been denied the use of that park for 2 years, even if we never went there yet. We've still been denied the use.
Yeah.
Right.
If you had kids that played on a travel team and you hated driving them all over the area to play, tell them that recreation should be more neighborhood related than regional related. One of the excuses we hear about the travel teams is that it gives your kid a chance to compete against the best, and it'll get them into college. They'll be better sports people to play in college, and they'll get scholarships. Well, why don't we take the $60 million for the sports complex and create a college fund for the kids in Middlesex County?
Yeah.
So that they don't have
because almost nobody ends up, the tiniest fraction of people end up benefiting from all of that money that's spent.
Yep. Hey, when I played Little League ball, it was $10 in the early 1970s. And I walked to the fields. It's not $1,400 per season to play soccer in Rockford, Illinois. And really, when you think of it, you have to have money to participate. You can't, and it's
we definitely should hit the environmental justice issue. A destination sports complex is going to be priced out. Most of the kids in Middlesex County, their families are going to be priced out of it.
Okay. All right, any other questions?
Nope.
Okay. I think I think we'll put together a document if anyone wants to help with that. A document with obviously the link, the upcoming meeting, the possible suggested questions, some facts, obviously. So if anyone wants to help with that, just let me know.
John, our website,
Oh yeah, website.
EdisonOpenSpaceandParks.com.
Yeah, we have that. Yeah.
That has
Right.
all kinds of facts on it.
We
All
did-
the documents that we have discovered about this project are on that site, including the DOT application and the environmental screening form and the other lies that the county has sent out.
But again, we have to develop questions about all these topics.
Right.
Like, you know, you have a couple of sentences discussing an issue and then you ask a question. So if we could actually develop a bulleted document that basically has the questions, you know, that we want to ask, and then people could pick from those questions the ones that, you know, I don't think it's necessary that every person that does this asks all the same 35 questions, right? You could ask, you know, it could be distributed where you ask the questions that you're most concerned about. But what we do need to is ask all the questions that we've talked about tonight and any others that we come up with.
Yeah. Walter, do you want us to create the document with the questions?
Yeah, do anything you can. We're
Okay.
at the point where just do it.
We'll do.
Walter,
Yep.
I have a question. Walter, did you put on that Groups IO, the New Jersey Coalition that you joined with all the other towns members? Did you put it on that Groups IO to put out the questions?
I have not done that.
Because you
I
know,
gotta figure that
Anna
out.
and Cindy Doig, you know, from Verona, and that they would all probably submit things for you.
Yeah, I talked to Taylor from the Sierra Club, and
Yes.
he was going to bring it up at the next meeting. But this weekend I'll contact all you people.
Yes, please. Last night I was on a Beyond Plastics meeting and Christine Durbin brought up the fact that, you know, you wanted to somehow get us, the Beyond Plastics, to work with you. I think they're still hesitant because they haven't had Judith Eck, who's in charge. You know, they're just getting themselves into this artificial turf. And the question last night was, this was more involved than just fighting the turf. It was fighting, you know, creating this whole sports complex and everything. So I don't know how many people from there you'll get behind you, but I know from that New Jersey Coalition, where there's about 32, 36 of us on there, I think you'll get like Anna Grossman and Cindy Doig from Verona, and that I think you'll get those people to follow you. Carrie Bass.
Okay, I'll send out an email.
Okay.
I have a question. You know, sometimes when they build something in a neighborhood, they have to notify residences within a certain number of feet of what they're going to be doing. Now, I know that the township has been not involved in this at all, but is there any, you know, I'm wondering, all the people that live in that neighborhood, if they even know about this, because it's going to impact, traffic is going to impact them, you know, the Long Mill Road there. I'm sure besides cars, you're going to have buses bringing in teams. So is there anything that requires notification?
We don't think so.
No, there is nothing. They don't have to notify the adjoining landowners or people in the neighborhood.
Would that be a valid point, though?
The county is not even having any public hearings.
Yeah.
So because they don't have to deal with the municipal approval or any kind of approval that requires notice, that's a point to make to the National Park Service, is that that's one way that, you know, the public is kept in dark about this, because They don't have to notify local people because there's no local process. And they haven't chosen to have a public hearing of any kind other than the Green Acres change of use hearing, which was on a Zoom call, which only about 5 or 6 people attended. Right.
Yeah.
So they've basically been able to avoid any kind of public process
We had like 20, we
for
had like 20
soliciting
people join.
comments.
We had like 15, 20 people join.
Yeah. But, you know, it was a Zoom hearing. And the county didn't do a in-person hearing, which I think
There
If
weren't many people who actually commented, I don't believe. Well, I mean, maybe I didn't stay on for the whole thing. How many at that public hearing, that Zoom hearing, how many people actually spoke?
I would say about 10, 15 people spoke, at least that.
Oh, okay.
At least that. It was, nobody spoke for it. The only odd comment when the guy wanted the remote control car facility there to race his little remote control cars. But everybody else either had questions or spoke against it.
Right.
I mean, it's going to impact noise while they're doing the construction. It's going to, you know, probably disrupt the roadway. It's already going to, you know, close the park. I mean, and people don't even know.
Yeah.
So that's
right. I mean, that's the point to make, is that because of the uniqueness of this process by which it's already a park and they're exempt from having any local approvals, nobody gets to know about it. And so that's why it's incumbent that the National Park Service, you know, being the only venue where anybody can even voice their opinion, that the National Park Service has to seriously consider all these things, because there's no other way to do it.
I think that's a good point. The last resort, right?
I think,
So
oh, go ahead.
Reach out to your friends and family, send them the link, have them comment. And I'll see some of you in Metuchen on Sunday, and maybe at Clark Barton on the 29th.
And I don't know, can you comment more than once? Suppose people put a few thoughts together and comment, and then 10 days later they hear from us that there's, we thought of this, we thought of that. Are you allowed to comment more than once?
I would think you can, or your twin brother could comment.
Yeah.
You know, surely
you might have to use
your sister,
your relative's email or something. It's probably
or you can send in the mail it by US mail to there. It has to be postmarked by September 3rd.
Okay. I'm going to say good night and thank you very much. It was very good. Okay.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure speaking with all of you. I'm sorry to go on so much, you know, but that's just me. I always say too many things, but hopefully some of it stuck.
No, I thank you very much. You educated me even further than what Walter has taught us already. So we all are part of this state and this country and this world, and what happens in your backyard is going to affect my backyard. So
That's a wonderful way to think about it. Yeah, Walter and I go way back. You know, fighting the good fight. In fact, it's so much fun working because for many years we didn't do much, you know, but lately we've been communicating again about some different things, and it's a lot of fun working with him again. So,
and Emil hasn't changed.
What gets me is everybody wants a destination sports center, and it's getting out of control. You know, we can't all have a destination sports center.
Yeah, well, I mean, the problem is that it threatens our parkland because people are trying to find a way to do it without having to buying the land for it themselves, right?
Yeah,
that's the whole point of this. Is, you know, we want to make money, but we don't want to go buy the land to do it like any other private business person. We want to use our political connections to get the land for free. You know,
right.
that's the problem. Let me tell you a funny story, because Walter said I haven't changed. So I've been on the Endangered Species Committee with the DEP for, decades. And finally, I had to rotate off the board. So when people rotate off the committee, usually we get a decoy, like they give everybody a gift, a little carving of some kind of bird decoy or something. So for me, they got me a decoy in fact, I'll show it to you. Just hang on for 1 minute. It's really pretty. Just hang on. Give me a second here.
Where'd he go?
I'm here.
There he is.
So here's my decoy. It's a good Middlesex County bird. I don't know if anybody knows birds, but
Cool.
right. So this is a bird of the salt marsh. This is a clapper rail. Would be really abundant along some of the salt marshes in Raritan Bay. So the reason they gave me this is because you can almost never see one because they're down there in the salt marsh, but they're as loud as you can fit them be, and they just make so much noise. So even though you almost never see one, you can always hear it. So they thought that was the best thing for me.
Nice.
That was pretty clever.
All right. Great. Yeah, I think.
All right, thanks, John.
Yeah, thanks, Walter. Thanks, Emil. I think we're gonna put together the document, and we'll do some. I think we're gonna do some canvassing. We'll see if that happens.
Okay.
Around that neighborhood, but yeah, I'll ask people to help. Hopefully, we can get some people to help out.
Yeah.
Okay.
Nothing better than pissing off the Middlesex County commissioners.
All right. Thanks, Walter. Thanks, Emil.
Take
All
care.
right, thanks,
everyone.
thanks
Thanks,
everybody.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Thanks. It's a great meeting.
Thanks, Chris. Good to see you.